It's the end of the regular season for Anaheim. It's Waterfowl Wednesday and much more on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome every day. Thank you for making Locked On Anaheim Ducks your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is Kyle Carr. I'm a lifelong Anaheim Ducks fan, and I've spent multiple years covering collegiate sports, including college hockey. But today we're talking the Anaheim Ducks, and it is the end of the regular season for Anaheim. No playoffs here, so we got to talk about the last game against Winnipeg. Then it's Waterfowl Wednesday. Got some things to talk about, not so positive notes that this season left us with. And then we're going to finish it off with the positives and kind of leave the day on a better note. So first off, looking at the game against Winnipeg, they did push the game into overtime as they were down 1-0 towards the end of the game, and they ended up scoring in the third period, brought it to overtime, but unfortunately, they dropped this one. So they got the point, and it brought the Ducks to 80 points. Pretty decent after having only 58 last year, or 59. So kind of a little breakdown of what happened. Ville Husso was actually in net, and he was outstanding. He was standing on his head. They kept the Winnipeg Jets, who's this high-flying team right now, best team in the league, and they kept them scoreless up until the second period. So really, really good playing for them. And for me, this is like what amplifies being a professional athlete. It's game 82. The Ducks have been out of the playoffs since Sunday, at least. Like last week, they were done. Skis completely done, eliminated. They've had to come out here and play against top playoff teams to finish out the season, and they still showed up and put on a performance and played the full 60 minutes. Well, 60 and about a minute and a half, but either way, they showed up, they played. Knowing you're out of the playoffs, you still got to show up and do your job, and that's exactly what the Ducks did. It was more of a pride game than anything. I was actually surprised that Winnipeg played their top guys. They had the full lineup in last night against Anaheim, and it was intriguing to me. I should say Wednesday night. They had them in there. They're going into the playoffs. You would think they would want to be resting their guys, but they had them in. They had Hellebuck in net, and Anaheim took it to overtime. So it was a pretty good showing up for the Ducks. Like I said, they did keep the Jets scoreless, the Ducks that is, until the 14th minute of the second period. That's when the Jets scored the first goal. The shots were 28-21 in favor of Winnipeg at that time. And honestly, there was really not much Ville Husso could do. He was making great saves the whole game. And this one was just an absolute rocket of a slap shot from Dylan Pionk on the Jets. It just went straight through traffic, right over his blocker side shoulder. So really just a rocket of a shot. And then they kept it, though. They kept going. They didn't let it get down to them. They didn't let the Jets score again until overtime. Right at the beginning of the third, about 4 minutes in, I want to say, there's 6 minutes into the third. Ian Moore, he gets his first NHL point in the last game of the year. He gets a shot on net, and Troy Terry, he picks up the rebound and puts it in. So congratulations to Ian Moore on getting your first NHL point in the 82nd game of this season. Just something to build on in the offseason and say, hey, at least I got mine. Troy Terry ties it up off of the rebound, and the Ducks fight off. They get it to overtime, and once you get into overtime, it looked like the Ducks were going to have a 2-on-1 with McTavish and Lacombe after a block shot gives them the breakaway. Lacombe's going through the neutral zone. He sees McTavish, sends it over to McTavish, and unfortunately, the defender of the Jets just makes an absolute body of a move. That was Josh Morrissey just lays out and gets his stick on the puck, completely knocks it off McTavish's stick. And then the Jets get a 3-on-1. They start heading back towards Billy Huso, and they get the first shot off. It gets saved. It goes behind the net. And then they just completely put the defenders of Anaheim in a blender. It was McTavish, Carlson, and Lacombe out on the ice. They just get totally mixed around with some passing by the Jets, and then they pop it in. And McTavish was not happy. This guy, my goodness, he completely tomahawks his stick on the goalpost. I'm surprised Huso didn't get some shrapnel from that one. He just started lumberjacking that thing, just whack, and he was so not happy about not capitalizing on that last moment there. But overall, like I said, this is a great display of being professionals and really going out there knowing that this doesn't really matter. There's no way this is going to get you in the playoffs or anything. This is the top team in the league that they're playing against, and they still showed up. The Ducks were there. They were in it. They were making chances. Billy Huso played outstanding the whole game. There was great chances by the forwards, like Cutter Gauthier had a couple chances. Carlson, Zegras was in there. Everyone was showed up and put on a performance when, most of us would probably bow down and be like, well, this doesn't matter. Why show up? Why perform? And that's not how the Ducks were. They went into this one hungry and just completely put on the battle for Winnipeg, which is good to see. That it shows that this team has definitely turned a corner on not giving up on each other, not giving up on themselves, and coming through and owning every single game, no matter if it's the first game of the season or the 82nd game of the season. They showed up for each other, and there was a big turnaround in the second half of the season. So just really looking forward to how this offseason goes and seeing what Pat Verbeek does and whether or not they move on from certain players or just keep growing this young core. We'll get into just how young that core is later in the show, but lots of things to build off of. Finishing off on a strong note for Anaheim. It was unfortunate they couldn't get both points, but they end the season at 80 points. Not bad at all. Speaking of bad, though, next segment, Waterfowl Wednesday, there are some things that we got to talk about that just were not the positives of this season, and kind of looking at where Anaheim ended up in the rankings and just some stuff that needs improvement, and you get your stamp on your test or your assignment in elementary school, that one that has the stamp needs improvement. There's a bunch of those stamps all over the Ducks report card right now, and we'll get into that coming up. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? I do it all the time. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. It's with all these subscriptions that are out there right now and everything that you're logged into, you get it on Monarch Money. It puts everything right in front of you, not having to go track bills down, track down the paperwork. It's all right there. It shows you everything that's there. And like I said, instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. And it is my weekly segment of Waterfowl Wednesdays coming at you. Got to talk about all things fouling up the team. And this year, some of the rankings and spots that the Ducks ended up in at the end of the year are definitely smelling foul, and they got to improve a lot of categories in the next couple of seasons. This definitely brings out the Boo Birds against Coach Cronin. I myself have said I think another year is in order for Coach Cronin. At least give him till American Thanksgiving. He's building up a team. There has been improvements. There's certain categories that need changing, like the special teams, and that it can, the head coach, yes, has a part of it, but a lot of that goes to the special teams assistant coaches. So there's some positives and some negatives this year, but we'll take a look at the negatives first and then dive into the positives later, ending on a good note. So let's look at how Anaheim ended up in the major categories this season and the ones that they did not end up well. They finished the season 23rd in wins and 24th overall due to some overtime loss points, building up their points there. They did end up in 29th in goals scored with 217 goals scored by Anaheim this year. I think definitely there's some plus on how many 20 plus goal scorers there were, but it was also, there was no like superstar this year for the team when it comes to scoring, and that kind of led to the lack of uh, points and shutdown games that Anaheim had. They were 22nd in goals against with 261, so not quite down there as they are in goals scored. They a little bit of improvement up into 22nd, but still bottom of the pack. Then they ended up 26th in their goal differential with minus 44. So that is the goals scored minus the goals against. And that was negative 44. So down almost at the very bottom there with their goal differential. And the one thing that we've been talking about, I've been harping on, and I've been losing my breath and turning blue in the face over the penalties and the power play. This year, the Ducks ended in 32 out of 32 teams in the power play percentage, dead last. That is where they find themselves after this year with an 11.8 power play percentage. Just a couple of months ago, that percentage was at 18%, dropped down to 17, and now it's all the way down at 11.8. The power play was completely abysmal this year for Anaheim. Not a positive light whatsoever for the team. They ended up 29th in the league for PK percentage. So at least their penalty kill wasn't dead last, but they were still way down at the bottom with a 74.2%. So not even 3 out of 4 penalties were killed. It was just under 3 out of 4 penalties right there with that percentage. So just a little perspective on, they were basically giving up a power play goal once a game, especially at the end of the year there. 22nd in shots per game average at 27.68. So they are not taking a lot of shots compared to the rest of the league. And they ended up in 27th in shot percentage at 9.6. So the shots that were being taken were not very accurate and were not scoring with only a 9.6 shot percentage. So that percentage is shots that convert into goals. So out of their 27.68 shots per game, they're only scoring 9% of them. First in shots allowed per game. So not the first you want to hear. It's a first place, but it ain't the one you want. First in shots allowed per game average with 32.29. So look at that. 27.68 shots per game on the Ducks side, and they're giving up 32.29 shots per game. So that's just that many more shots per game that the opponent has to convert into goals. And that is not looking good. They got to lock down. Luckily, they had Lukasz Dostal and John Gibson and now Billy Huso. They've had very outstanding goaltending as they ended up in 9th in goal save percentage. So to have the most shots given up per game and then have the 9th best goaltending, that just goes to show they were saving the defense's butt this year. Radko Gudas kind of getting into some individual awards, if you will. Radko Gudas, he led the team in giveaways with 104, followed by Cutter Gauthier with 81 and Jackson Lacombe with 78. So the captain playing back in the defensive zone. I mean, Gudas and Lacombe, they were the top pair out there for D, so they got the most ice time out of most of the skaters. So it's going to be obviously a little bit more high on their giveaways, but that is a lot of giveaways. 104 by the captain. Surprised that Cutter Gauthier was at the second place with 81 there. I think he started to lock down his play style a lot more towards the end of the season and got a lot more confidence. And he was one of the only players to play all 82 games, the youngest player to play all 82 games. So that is a pretty good job by him, and obviously something that's going to decrease as time progresses. McTavish, he led the active centers, so the players that were positioned as centers for majority of the season, he led them in the faceoff win percentage at 50.7%. However, he was the only center to be at 50 or above on the faceoff percentage. The next closest was Isaac Lundestrom at 49 and some change percent. So unfortunate that these centers, that the Ducks are not starting the game with possession. And that just kills you when you're trying to win games and you have to get the puck back every single time there's a start of a possession or play. That's just that much more battling that you have to do, and it's that much more exhausting. If you've ever played hockey, having to go chase the puck and get it back wears you out so much more than when you have possession. It is like an extra weight on your back, no pun intended. McTavish on those faceoffs, though, that was 487 faceoffs that he won out of 961 faceoffs taken. So not bad, not bad. Definitely want to see him increase. He stepped it up this year. And you got to remember, McTavish is only 22. So the ceiling is just that much higher for this young guy right here. And to be leading the centers in faceoffs is a pretty good feat for moving into the future. Like I said, there were no other centers that were at 50%. So that's kind of a bummer there. Definitely doesn't help. Gudas also led the team in penalty minutes this year. He had 86 PIMs, followed by Vetrano with 80 and Ross Johnston with 72. It's kind of interesting to see Vetrano up there in the hits categories, the penalty categories. He's one of the smaller guys on the team, but he's like a little bulldog out there just rocking the body and a little bit undisciplined from the senior players there. Jansen Harkins had the worst plus minus on the team with minus 13, followed by Isaac Lundestrom at minus 12 and Frank Vetrano at minus 9. So a little unfortunate there. The Strome, Vetrano, Terry line was rough this year. And another reason, a lot of people are not happy with Greg Cronin. I definitely would have liked to see more mixing up of the lines out of him, and he kept the Vetrano, Strome, and Terry line, even with their lack of success. He kept them together for basically until game 80, and it would have been nicer to mix it up, and I think give Terry some opportunities to play with some of the younger guys, as he was probably the most, I would say, the most not productive. Well, he was productive as he led the team in assists, but he was the most solid player out of that line, and I think he would have brought a lot more calmness and energy to other lines, like with McTavish and Zegras, or with Carlson and Gauthier. I think Terry would be a nice asset to be with those guys, but I'm not the head coach, and I didn't get to make that decision. 10 Ducks skaters were positive in the plus minus category, so that's okay. 5 skaters were at 0, and 14 skaters were negative. So that's where the waterfowl comes out, is 14 skaters compared to 10 were negative over positive, and 0 5 skaters, and some of those guys were pretty much the few skaters that just joined at the end of the season there. So kind of rough. Ducks definitely need to try to get more scoring and lock down the defense. And that is a big category that will be addressed in the offseason is getting a bona fide goal scorer on this team. But we can't end everything on the negative. There are some good things that occurred with this team, and we're going to look at the positive notes after this. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. So only $5 that you're risking can lead you to $250. And it's so easy and convenient on FanDuel. They have everything you can think of on there: game parlays, player props, steals to assists, three-pointers, anything and everything that you could think of that you could put some money on. It's on FanDuel. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. To finish off this season and episode with some positive notes, we're going to look at some of the things that are bright stars to look forward to into the future, and just some things that looked good overall this year. And one of the things that really stuck out to me, there was 82 games played and only 3 players played those all 382 games. However, there were a lot of players within the 80, 81, 79 right there, basically playing the entire season, and some of that was from either an injury or healthy scratch or whatnot. But 3 players played all 82 games, and that was Ryan Strome, Cutter Gauthier, and Alex Killorn. You got 2 vets in there, and then the new guy, Cutter Gauthier, all 82 games. And that was one thing that they talked about a lot this season is he played college. The college season is not even half of the NHL regular season, and they play only on the weekends. And you got games every single day, every single week for the most part, for all 82 games for a long time. So it's a definitely big change in pace coming from college to the big leagues. And for him to stay healthy and to be there for all those moments and to break 20 goals, just a really outstanding season for Cutter Gauthier. Cannot wait to see how him and Leo Carlsson become the next Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf. Different play styles, yes, but I feel like the dynamic duo that this team needs is right there with Cutter and Carlsson. The goals leader this year, another solid end here. He's kind of like the Patrick Eaves or the Ryan Kessler of the team. He is Mason McTavish. He led the team in goals with 22, followed by Frank Vetrano with 21 and Troy Terry with 21 as well. So 2 guys there at 21 and Mason McTavish with 22. However, there were 5 skaters with 20 or more goals, and they were so close to having 6, but the next guy could just not get one. That was Alex Killorn. He was at 19, couldn't get a 20th, but we had 5 skaters. That was the Ducks with Mason McTavish, Frank Vetrano, Troy Terry, Cutter Gauthier, and Leo Carlsson all getting 20 or more goals this season. And listen right there. We got 1, 2, and 3 players under 22 and below that are in the 20 goal mark. That's awesome with Mason McTavish, Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlsson, and even the young but not young Troy Terry. The Ducks had 10 skaters with double-digit goals, so there was a little bit of spreading of the love this season. Obviously, the 5 listed that I just gave you, and then also Alex Killorn, Jackson Lacombe, Trevor Zegras, Ryan Strome, and Sam Colangelo. Sam Colangelo just got his 10th goal of the season on the game just the other night. It was a beautiful goal with the backhander. I loved the way he scored. And for him, he had a very short season with Anaheim. So for him to get 10 goals, very, very positive outlook for the future with him. And then the assist leader was Troy Terry. He had 34, followed by Ryan Strome with 31 and Mason McTavish with 30. So spreading the offense out there as well. Troy Terry, he was the points leader for the team with 55, followed by Mason McTavish with 52 and Frank Vetrano with 45. Lots of positive marks there. Vetrano, he had an excellent career season last season. So he's still up there. Could have seen a little bit more out of him. I think a big part of what led to his scoring not being as productive this year was the lack of the power play. And even though they tried to feed him all the power play goals, it just was too predictable and it was not working out well. So I think that kind of led to why his goal scoring kind of shrunk this year. There were 7 skaters that had 40 or more points this year. And that's Terry, McTavish, Vetrano, Carlson, Lacombe, Gauthier, and Strome. So that's good positives to build off of there with having 7 skaters, 40 or more points. Would like to see maybe some more 50-point players next year. Who knows? Maybe get 100-pointer out there. The future is bright. You know, a guy can hope and dream, and maybe if the coach Cronin is still around, and maybe he actually plays players where they're supposed to be. So we'll see. McTavish, he had the most power play goals with 6, followed by Terry with 4, and Carlson with 4. Carlson, Vetrano, and Killorn were tied for the most shorthanded goals at 1. There was not a lot of shorthanded goals scored this year, as there was only 3. Carlson and Killorn led the team in game-winning goals with 5, each followed by Troy Terry with 4. And then Carlson and Cutter Gauthier, they led the team in goals, OT goals with 2. So it's unfortunate that obviously games getting to OT, you'd like to see the team win in regulation, but there wasn't a lot of OT winners for Anaheim this season. Would like to see a little bit more of a lockdown if they do get to overtime, and obviously more regulation wins. Gudis did lead the team in other categories other than negative ones. He, he did lead the team in hits with 261, followed by Vetrano with 169 and Jansen Harkins with 136. He also that's Gudis, that is. He also led the team in block shots with 178, followed by Trouba with 140 and Jackson Lacombe with 129. Definitely want to see your top defensive pair eating pucks, and they did that this season. And then bringing Trouba over, that guy's obviously he is a defensive machine. Love the way that he is integrated with Anaheim, and I really hope he stays out here for next season and helps build this defensive core up, because I really enjoyed his play style this year, and not having to be the man like he was in New York, I think helped him loosen up and play a little bit better out here in Anaheim. And I think he really enjoys it. So it'll be good to see him out here again next season. Lacombe led the team in takeaways. If you watched Lacombe at any point this season, you saw this guy's defensive prowess is just outstanding. His ability to angle players off and stay calm, collective in the defensive zone and just strip the puck. It's like he's just a fleecer out there. Like, it's amazing to watch, and the ceiling is only going to go up. Like, he's also one of the young players out in Anaheim, and there's just another level that he can reach, and that's what Pat Verbeek sees in him. That's what Coach Cronin sees in him. There's definitely going to be another level of Lacombe's play, and it's just going to be an exciting time to watch next year. Ducks, this is one of the things. To finish out the takeaways, Lacombe led with 35. Trouba had 23, and Cutter Gauthier had 22. Again, Cutter Gauthier just really becoming a dominant force for this team, and it's going to be even more like he's going to get bigger, he's going to get stronger. He knows what the 82 game season is like now, and he's really starting to mesh well with Leo Carlson. So the ceiling is also very high for him. There's a lot of players that the ceiling is just going to keep going up and up and up, and that's because the Ducks have 15 players that are 25 or younger. 9 of which are 23 or younger. Those 15, 25-year-olds or younger is Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish, Nikita Nestorenko, Tim Wash, Trevor Zegras, Isaac Lundestrom, Cutter Goche, Sam Colangelo, Brett Leeson, Pavel Minchikov, Olin Zellweger, Ian Moore, Drew Hellison, Jackson Lacombe, and Lukasz Dostal. Ever heard any of those players? Yes. That is the main core of the team. They are 25 or younger. That's so many of the players that not only did they have a great, outstanding season this year and they took a step up, they have so much more ahead of them. And it's a very good time to be in Anaheim and to be a fan. And yes, the season was not exactly what the fans and myself wanted. Yes, it sucks being out of the playoffs 7 years in a row after having playoffs for 9 years in a row, 6 out of 9. It was a crazy time. We were very, very spoiled as Ducks fans back then. And now we've been paying our dues and we want to see the postseason out in Orange Country, as they're calling it this year. And I think it's going to be very soon. There's so much potential on this team, and it may not be next year. I don't want to get the hopes up too high. Obviously, I'm going to be cheering and really hoping for it. I want it, but I want to also set, my expectations at a decent space. And I think if they do get in, it's going to be a wild card spot and it might be a rough out in the first round. But if they don't make it next year, I'm not overtly gonna be upset. Like I'm saying that now, and I'm probably gonna be screaming next year when they don't make it. But I want to see the growth in the right way and the development. And hockey's one of those sports where it's a marathon, not a sprint. And the Ducks are applying the marathon method to their development. And there's so many players down in San Diego and in juniors, and the pipeline is just youthful and it's dominant. There are so many good players that are going to come up and I think have very, very successful years in Anaheim. The only thing is we cannot pull the old Bob Murray and trade away all of the best defensemen that the homegrown Ducks defenders that they build and they train and they turn into elite players, and then they get traded and end up winning Stanley Cups elsewhere, that need to stay here and bring the Stanley Cup back to Anaheim. It is unfortunate that the regular season is over for Anaheim, but we'll still be here at Locked On Anaheim Ducks. And thank you for making Locked On Anaheim Ducks your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And that's where you can find this podcast. Like, share, subscribe, like and share the YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube. It helps out numerously. And obviously everywhere else, just continue to listen and share, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm Kyle Carr. Be good out there.